Welcome to the Westplex Chamber of Commerce podcast. Here's your host, Brad Hildebrand.
We're on location recording, and we are, should I give a plug, Mark, for where we're at?
Absolutely. This is my favorite coffee place in O'Fallon. It's PJ's Coffee right here on Highway K.
Right on Highway K, and locally owned and operated, I would hope?
Yes, sir. It's there's a franchise that started in New Orleans that some good friends of mine brought up to this area.
So you have personal experience with the owners then, right?
Well, you know, some of them are my constituents in District 107. So
Mark, say your last name, because I always get it wrong.
Matthiesen.
Matthiesen. It sort of looks like Matthiesen, but it's not, right?
If you ignore the H, you are good to go.
And you are currently
a state representative in Southern O'Fallon and Darden Prairie. It's District 107.
107. Now, you take in parts of O'Fallon because that's divided up amongst other reps as well.
There's about 7 reps with a piece of O'Fallon. I'm fortunate enough to have the beautiful Southern O'Fallon area, essentially south of Hutchins Farms Road, going all the way down to Highway 40.
I know a little bit of your background. This is your third term as a state rep, but what's sort of interesting is in 2 locations, right?
That's right. So my first term, I won an election in 2016 when I was a resident of Maryland Heights. And it was a really interesting drawn district that took in Hazelwood, Bridgeton, Maryland Heights, Chesterfield, some Creve Coeur, and it came across the river into St. Charles. So I had the entire riverfront from Ameristar Casino all the way down to Highway 40
Really?
Bridge.
It was on the other side of the river, too?
Yes.
That's sort of weird.
Oh, yeah. It was a fun district. Met a lot of great people on both sides of the river. However, it was the only seat in the state of Missouri that changed hands from a Democrat district to a Republican district in 2016. So in 2018, that became the number 1 targeted district in the state by both parties. And unfortunately, I lost re-election by 97 votes.
Wow. Close
race. It
race.
was a tight one. So the next morning, my wife said, "Okay, dear, now can we move to St. Charles County?" And I was like, all right, kind of talk me into it. Because, you know, while Maryland Heights was a great place to live, all of our friends had left Maryland Heights to move to O'Fallon or Weldon Spring or Darden Prairie. And so we were spending more time driving out here to visit our friends than we were in Maryland Heights. So it just made sense to move over here.
Can I throw something interesting that I just saw recently within the last 6 months? Maryland Heights is an interesting statistic, is that 20% of the population of Maryland Heights is now Asian. Did you know that?
I did not know that. I would have guessed Indian.
No, but I was sort of surprised at that because it's one of those things where you don't normally think of Maryland Heights as being like sort of an ethnic area in that respect, especially with the Asians. I just threw it out to you. So you ended up in St. Charles County. You moved out here in what year?
2019. So it has been 6 years ago.
And you sat out a couple elections, so the 2022 was your election where you were back in again then, right?
That's correct. I had to wait for the current rep. Ron Hicks was my predecessor, and I waited for him to term out, and then I ran to replace him in 2022. And it was a beautiful election. You know, out here we have great conservative people who believe in good Midwest Christian values, and so we were able to win that race with at least 60% of the vote, and that carried through into the re-election this past November.
Now let's go back to your history. You were originally born and raised where?
Well, I was born in Fayetteville, Arkansas.
No kidding.
Right, but I didn't live in Arkansas. That was because the closest hospital to the little tiny town I lived in Cassville, Missouri, Berry County, right there at the corner, near the Arkansas border, it was closer to find a hospital going south into Arkansas than going north up to like Springfield, Missouri.
Really?
So I was born in Fayetteville, but I lived in Cassville, Missouri as a small child. And then when I was about 9 years old, I moved up to Franklin County and lived in Washington, Missouri for a vast majority of my life after that.
And you graduated from, Washington High School then?
Class of 1994. Go
No
Blue
kidding.
Jays.
Go Blue Jays, man. I'll tell you what. And the interesting thing about Washington is, me having a lot of experience in that, it's sort of interesting is that people talk about it as being a growth area, but Washington really hasn't grown much at all.
It really hasn't. The recession in 2008 put a huge damper in the growth plans for Washington. Is back then, I happened to be the manager of the Qdoba, actually,
Really?
in Washington.
So you got food background as well too?
Most of my life has been in the hospitality industry. Whether managing restaurants, managing hotels. I spent 5.5 years at Ameristar Casino as a table games dealer or dual rate supervisor. Up until my first election, that's what I was doing, was working at Ameristar in gaming.
I had no idea you had that background.
That's right.
Interesting.
Now, I did. I got licensed as a realtor shortly after the unsuccessful re-election, and so I've been really focusing on residential real estate since then.
And that's what you do right now.
That is what I do right now.
Matter of fact, you told me an interesting story, and can we tell the story about who you sold a house to? A guy who just ran for Senate who didn't make it.
Yeah, very, very close friend of mine was unsuccessful in his Senate primary, but it's still a beautiful house.
We're talking about Phil Cristofanelli.
Yes.
And you sold him his house.
I did, and helped him sell the house he lived in before to move over. So, I'm sure he's still enjoying his neighborhood and is on to his next successful adventure. But yeah, I've helped a number of my legislative colleagues with their transactions in the area over the last 6 years.
Now let's give a plug. What agency are you working with?
I'm with Realty One Group Dominion. My broker, Derek Grier, and I actually served together in the legislature. We were both freshmen in 2017. So we kept a great relationship over the years. So when I saw an opportunity to go work for him, I moved from a local Coldwell Banker branch over to Realty One Group.
And do you enjoy the real estate industry?
I love real estate. Now, me being a politician, I love to talk to people. I know that's a shock.
Well, I find that hard to believe.
I know. And in real estate, to be successful, you can't be afraid to talk to people.
Right. It's
so
very
I'm
much
constantly, sharing what I'm doing, finding out what's going on in people's lives, and hopefully being the right guy at the right place at the right time to help somebody with their next real estate transaction.
Very much of a relationship business.
It is.
Yes.
It is. Politics, real estate, it's all about the relationships you build with people around you, expanding your circle of friends, and just taking care of people.
Now, as far as politics are concerned, you're into your technically third term, although
Yes.
there was a hiatus of 4 years or 6 years?
Yeah, it was a little 4-year break.
4 year break. Okay. Do you still enjoy that? I mean, I hear people,
love it.
I know people in politics, and that doesn't seem to be a middle ground. They either love it or they hate it.
Yeah, unfortunately, when I feel we're being productive, I love every minute I'm up there discussing policy in Jefferson City. It can be frustrating. It takes 82 votes to move something out of the House. So you have to have a compelling reason why at least 82 people need to vote on your legislation and agree with the policy you're working on. But, we have 163 representatives, 111 Republicans, and 52 Democrats. And everyone's there to serve their constituents, and everyone feels that their constituents wants them to vote certain ways on certain issues. And it's incumbent on the person with the bill to convince enough people that what I'm doing will help their constituents as well as mine and the entire state of Missouri. That can be a challenge.
And always in the state of Missouri, you have the problem. You have the rural versus the suburban, urban areas.
Yes, there is an issue with that. And a lot of that comes into play when we're talking about education policy. In the suburban area, school choice is a real key issue because we want parents to be able to select the best choice for their child, no matter what that choice is. Sometimes it's the public school. Sometimes it's the public school down the street. Sometimes it's a private school or homeschooling. And we want to make sure every parent has every opportunity that they can have, regardless of their financial situation. In the rural school, or in the rural districts, where the school is often the largest employer, when the superintendent steps in and calls that rural representative and says, don't vote for that policy, because they somehow perceive it could affect their rural district, those representatives really pay attention to that voice since so many people are employed by the districts. Even though most of these policies play zero effect in their district. It's a lot of solidarity when the reps or the school districts in our area reach out to the rural school districts and say, hey, tell your rep to vote no in solidarity with me.
Now, I would assume, I'm going to infer something, that you're pro-school choice?
I'm very pro-school choice.
Now,
I'm pro-family. I'm pro-parents making the best decision they can for their kids.
And obviously the NEA people aren't happy with you.
The NEA people don't like me at all.
But, the interesting thing for me on that is that we have a society, we have a workplace where you and I are sitting in a coffee shop on Highway K, PJ's, okay?
Yeah.
And there's a Panera down the street, there's a Starbucks down the street as well, too, okay? We have our choices to which one we end up in, correct?
Correct, absolutely.
But yet when it comes to schools, there's no choice.
Everything's defined by your zip code. If you live one block over, you might be heading to one high school. If you live over here, you're heading to a different one. 2 miles down the road, you're heading to a whole different school district. And maybe the school district you live in doesn't offer the services that mean what your kid needs.
Well,
because each district specializes in something.
And take it from your background. I didn't realize you were in food service business and you were in the consumer or the casino business as well too. Talking about competitive environments, the food service business and the casino industry is super competitive.
And I treat everybody as if they are the most important customer, client, constituent. It's all the same. If your need is what's important right then, and if I'm not doing my job in this restaurant business, you're going to head down the street to another restaurant. In the political world, you're going to vote for the other person.
Right.
So it's votes that matters in life.
Right, and my industry in the radio business, I've got in the St. Louis area, I've got 50 different competitors. Plus, we compete with YouTube and Facebook and the whole bit. And I guess that's what's always sort of grounded me in the respect that okay, it's competition. Why isn't there competition in the school districts? Because you would think that it would make the school districts better because if they're competing with one another, hey, don't go to Wentzville, come here to Francis Howell. No, don't go to Francis Howell, come here to Fort Zumwalt.
We'll talk about one piece of legislation that's going through right now, and it is an open enrollment bill, where a school district would have to opt in to receive students. However, if you drive down Bryan Road, where you have the Fort Zumwalt West High School on the east side of the road, the west side of the road is the Wentzville School District.
Interesting.
There are people living just west of Bryan Road who can practically see the high school from their front door, yet their kids are having to take a long bus ride to the closest Wentzville School District high school. Yet you have a Fort Zumwalt West building that's only 2/3 full and could accommodate a whole lot more students who could simply walk out their front door and walk to that closer high school.
Sort of reminds me of my years. I was a North County guy. I went to Hazelwood High School. It's now Hazelwood Central, but the interesting part of that was if we walked out of Hazelwood High School and walked down New Halls Ferry about a half mile, you're in Ferguson-Florissant School District. Same kind of thing. The subdivisions just to the south of us were in a different school district. As a matter of fact, on our bus drive, when we came up New Halls Ferry, we were in the Ferguson-Florissant district for most of the drive up from Lindbergh. And it's crazy. You go like, okay, why is that? Why is it that,
arbitrary boundaries.
It's like you say, zip codes and different things like that. Now, looking to the future, okay?
Yes.
You are obviously can run for another term.
I could.
You could. Now, do you enjoy it enough to the point where you would make? And a lot of times, the career path is people go from state rep to Senate. Do you see yourself being in government for the foreseeable future?
As long as I feel like my time serving my constituents is valuable, then I'm willing to make the sacrifices that I make to do that. I spent a lot of time away from the family. And, my son's not getting any younger, so I have to really take advantage of the time that I can with him. So as long as I feel like it's really meaningful to be involved and to do what I'm doing, I'm going to stick with it.
Now, let me ask you a question on that. This is an interesting thing that a lot of people don't realize. When you're in session, that's essentially from beginning of January to, what is it, the second Friday
Second Friday of May.
In May, okay.
Yes.
What's your schedule? Do you live down in Jefferson City? Do you have a place you stay at down there? Or,
well, the last couple of years I've been staying at a hotel Monday through Thursday.
So you're just renting a room?
Yeah. There's other years I've had an apartment that I got a 6-month lease on, or shared a house with a couple other people. So there's a lot of housing options. But yeah, I'll get up Monday morning, or if I need to be there early, I'll leave Sunday night, and I won't see my family again until Thursday afternoon or Thursday evening.
And so pretty much everything comes to a close on Thursday afternoon in Jefferson City?
Correct. And then, except for the very end of session, where we're often staying for Fridays as well.
But that's like the last couple of weeks or something like that?
It is, yes.
Is Jefferson City... it's interesting. Years ago, a friend of mine who was in government had the chance to take a job, and they told her she had to either live in Jefferson City or Columbia. And I said, you don't want to live in Jefferson City. You want to live in Columbia. Jefferson City is a tad on the boring side. Am I pretty much accurate with that?
Well, they do roll up their sidewalks pretty early. I'm not a party animal, so you're not going to find me out at the handful of bars that are open late anyway. So, it doesn't faze me a whole lot. But I wish the restaurants would stay open a little bit later. Columbia is a great place to live. Lots of good restaurants. But, Jefferson City is doing a little better. So hopefully, post-COVID, more things will reopen.
And what I find fascinating about that area, Columbia has really grown. Columbia has
huge now.
And it used to have the rap as being a college town. It's much more than that right now.
Yeah, I mean, it was the first town in Missouri to really embrace the marijuana industry. So
I don't know if that's good or bad.
Huge population moved there simply for that one fact. And even though, I'm completely serious, I kind of make light of them that. But it has drawn a lot of people for a variety of reasons. So the commerce there is expanding immensely.
Now, as far as your real estate business is concerned,
yes.
How do you work that with being a state rep? Does that work out okay?
Well, it can be a challenge. I have a listing I'm working on right now. Anybody needs a 2-bedroom, 2-bath condo, certainly reach out.
Little plug.
That's right. You're always working on that. Sometimes, I got to take care of stuff on Monday mornings before I go. I can schedule inspections and vendor meetings, things like that, Thursday evenings, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Good news is there's always 7 days a week, and as a realtor, you are working 7 days a week.
Well, and that's one of those jobs, me being in the radio business, it's one of those things where people talk about, I have to have my weekends to myself, but there's so many jobs where that's just, thank our policemen who are out there, our firefighters, are all the people who work 24/7, 365. And once again, in real estate, if you
got to be available.
Right. If somebody calls you on a Friday morning, wants to see a house, or a Saturday afternoon, or a Sunday night, whatever, you got to be able to do what you got to do.
I have had a client just call me out of the blue about 11:30 at night going, that house we saw last weekend, let's put an offer on it right now. Knowing that the very next day, it was possible that other people could have gone in, saw that house, and put an offer on it. So we got something submitted so that agents saw it in their inbox when they first woke up the next morning, and we're able to get a house under contract.
And that's the name of the game in the real estate business.
Absolutely.
Now, moving forward, what do you think is going to be the real estate industry? Everybody's talking about, there's a time when you hear the people talking about a house goes on the market and 20 people bid over asking price.
Right.
Is that still going on?
It is to a lesser degree. The key is to price your house appropriately. Make sure you've got it show ready. The market shifted a bit. It was where you'd have 30 offers on a house no matter what condition it's going to be in. Buyers are a little more discerning right now. With the interest rates up, that house is going to cost a lot more money. So they want to see that everything is fixed. They don't want bright pinks and purples on your walls anymore and are willing to do the work to fix it themselves. But the reality is there are still more people out looking to buy than there are homes on the market. So it is still a seller's market. You just have to put a little more effort into it now. With the potential for interest rates to come back down, though, prices are still staying high. When the interest rates start coming down, the demand's going to go back even further.
And that's going to fuel the price increases.
It will absolutely fuel the price increases.
Mark, I appreciate you sitting with me this morning. If people want to get a hold of you real estate-wise, how would they do that?
Well, the best thing is to shoot me a text at 314-541-0098. You can also find me on Twitter at MarkMattMo, or look me up at sellhomeswithmark.com.
And if somebody wanted to reach you officially, what would be the best way to do that as far as your duties as a state rep?
The best thing there would go to house.mo.gov. That's house.mo.gov. Look for my name, Mark Matthiesen, and give my office a call.
Spell that one time for us.
It is MarkMatthiesen.
Mark, appreciate you sitting down with me.
Absolutely. Thank you, Brad.